Gazzetta Football Italia from Paul's house. Coyotes. Hello and welcome to Gazzetta Football Italia from Paul's house. The thing is, Paul himself isn't here right now. He seems to have disappeared off somewhere. So it falls to me to tell you about the show we've got coming up. There's Coppa Italia highlights, there's a special piece on Atalanta, who'll be playing live against Milan tomorrow on Channel 4, and a Valentine's special coming up at the end of the programme. But first, as the great man himself would say, this.
Coming up, Atalanta's fight to join the big guns of Serie A. James Richardson with all the news from behind the week's headlines. All the goals from last weekend's league action. A trip to Italy and other prizes to be won in our weekly competition. Goal action from all 4 Italian Cup quarter-finals, including Pullit and Gazza's Lazio, with a chance to see if you can spot a goal in the Turin fog. James Richardson reports on the season's surprise package, Atalanta, as they prepare to become the first side to topple mighty Milan. And a Valentine's Day special on Italy's greatest love, football. But it's with Atalanta that we start the action, as Gary Bloom reports on their game last weekend with Juventus.
7 wins and 2 draws here make the Stadio Comunale something of a fortress to visiting teams, although Atalanta are without the suspended Roberto Ramberti this afternoon. Number 11, Leo Rodriguez, an Argentinian international, has managed to win a place in the midfield, but goal scoring remains a problem. Number 9, Maurizio Gans, hasn't scored in his last 6 Serie A games. David Platt returns to the Juventus team, his first appearance since a knee operation at the end of November. Platt's job will be to babysit the Juventus midfield. He'll be expected to operate everywhere, with the exception of Atlanta's penalty area. Juventus are missing their defender Jürgen Kohler, who's suspended. Atalanta don't... Vialli, Mola, this looks promising. Good stop by Ferron in the end. Thunderous drive by Andy Mola. And the goalkeeper needed 2 attempts to gather the ball out. Perone. Gans offside, that's not going to count. Sorry, I didn't hear you. But such is Gant's desire to score a goal for his club, and he's happy to put the ball in the net and think about the consequences later. Still goalless there. Oh, Torricelli strangely neglected the ball. D'Agostini leaves it to Perone. Well, Platt made the challenge. Perone felt it was an illegal one, and so too did most of the spectators in the Stadio Comunale. D'Agostini. Once again, another move breaks down, and Juventus might counter-attack. Minardo takes the throw. Perone. Gans. Perone again. Oh, I say! The oldest man on the field provides a goal of real class. "16 seasons as a professional, but only 3 of those in the top flight. But Perone, the tireless worker in midfield for Atalanta, scores a goal of high quality. Gans was the architect of the goal, and how about this for a splendid finish? Sergio Porrini again. Rather theatrical foul by Maurizio Gens. Spun away like a top after that clash with De Marchi. Alamau with a free kick. Bordin will need support on this near side. In fact, doesn't need it. Alamau! Peruzzi, nicknamed the orangutan by Giovanni Trapattoni, the coach of Juventus. Swung from branch to branch then to get hold of that ball. Good stop. Mola. Roberto Baggio. Mola inside the penalty area now, calling for the ball. Mola, he's got the equaliser, 1-1. And all the taunting of Andy Mola is thrown back in the faces of the Atalanta fans. And the man who turned his back on the club in the summer months to join Juventus equalises in the Stadio Comunale. Juventus really have clawed their way back into this game, and it's been ever so difficult for them. And now Atalanta have this free kick. Look where Vialli was, back helping out in defence. I think it was a foul by De Marchi, which away games in the league have ended 1-1 draws. Oh, what a save by Peruzzi! Heaven only knows how he made up the distance to claw that one away. Barone slid through to Gens. He scored at last. The goal famine of Maurizio Gens comes to an end. And the two players who combined for Atalanta's first goal combine again for their second. And the team with the best home record in Serie A have won again.
All the rest of the Serie A goals to come, but first, James Richardson with news from behind the headlines.
Buongiorno. The newspapers this week, a heady mixture of love, transfers and violence, kicking off with the man who's so often in our review of the week's newspapers that you think we had a contract with him or something. Here he is on the cover of the Corriere dello Sport, always on the front page. Gascoigne argues with the photographers. And here inside, Gascoigne, forbidden words and photographs. The week's big Gaza story took place here at the Zodiaco Bar on the Monte Mario in Rome. The very romantic location for the big reunion photo shoot between Gascoigne and his ex-girlfriend Cheryl Kyle. And indeed, under the hot Roman sun, passion did indeed flare, although not of the expected variety. Two Italian paparazzi turned up and started taking photographs of what had until then been a highly expensive Sun exclusive. And what happened after that? Well, opinions vary. Some papers carry reports of punches being thrown. Paul certainly had a grapple with a photographer for the roll of film, saying, "Give it back, those are family photos," neglecting to add, "which I just sold for £50,000. Anyway, the police descended in force to sort the whole mess out, although they did not, as the Gazzetta rather excitedly claimed, myself and two others in jail, particularly since I was nowhere near the place at the time. Anyway, in the meantime, Cheryl Kyle has returned to London, and it can't be long before we're reading transcripts of her conversations with Paul on her cell phone. In the meantime, though, it hasn't been a good week for Paul Gascoigne after that particularly disappointing midweek Coppa Italia performance against Torino. No mystery, though, to our friends at the Corriere dello Sport. Gascoigne is lovesick, they explain. But in the meantime, more violence, I'm afraid, as talk turns to Pasquale Bruno of Torino. Torino's new president, Roberto Goviani, declared on Sunday morning, "Non-violence is our banner," so he must have been pretty taken aback by Bruno's interpretation of his words in the match that very afternoon. The Torino defender committed a singularly nasty foul that left Florin Raduceo of Brescia needing 9 stitches to a particularly nasty gash 10 centimetres long and right to the bone in his leg. It was after the game, though, that the problems really started. Raduceo revealing that before the match, Bruno had threatened him, saying, "I will break your leg." Bruno's reply lacked a little in apology, but made up for it in sarcasm. "Yeah, that's right," he said, "and I had a sawn-off shotgun and a pistol in my pocket, and I thought he was just pleased to see me." Still, in Tuesday's Gazzetta dello Sport came the announcement, Bruno the bully is under investigation. The announcement of an inquiry, in fact, held by the president of the Players Association, no less, into the behaviour of Bruno. Well, market news now, and the shock announcement this week from Roma president Giuseppe Ciarapico that he intends to buy Gigi Casaraghi of Juventus. The news comes as something of a surprise because right now Ciarapico has to find £3 million to pay the Italian Federation if he wants Roma to be involved in next season's competition. A lot of people here don't see Ciarapico involved with the club for that long, but in the meantime, good news came for Roma midweek in their Coppa Italia game against Napoli, and a pretty violent encounter this was as well. Jonas Tern of Napoli was left temporarily paralysed by a Giannini tackle. A fight broke out in the first half and 4 people were sent off, including Napoli coach Bianchi. A 2-0 win for Roma, but both clubs now effectively out of the Coppa Italia because, as the Corriere dello Sport explains, Roma up next, it's Milan. And after what Milan did to Inter on Wednesday night, it looks like the jig is truly up for Roma. Well, hopefully that's whetted your Coppa Italia appetite, in which case you'll be delighted to know that coming up after the break we'll have highlights of all of those midweek games and our competition, all of which in a couple of minutes, so see you then.
Welcome back. Top prizes to be won in our competition soon, but first, Gary Bloom with a roundup of last Sunday's Serie A action.
Walter Zenga was back in goal for Inter at Cagliari, and the Spider-Man was soon called into play with this save from Puchedu. The flamboyant goalkeeper was given a helping hand from Berti moments later, and an upright. The legendary Gigi Rivo was on the score sheet the last time Cagliari managed a home win over Inter, which gives you an indication of how long ago that was. Here's Francescoli shooting into the crowd. Into the second half, Zenga came to Inter's rescue again, Capioli with a header. Inter just couldn't get out of their own half. Olivero went close with this effort. Angelo Orlando, in for the injured Bianchi, produced Inter's 2 best attempts at goal late in the game. However, he couldn't find the target. So the match ended goalless. Inter stayed behind Milan in second place in Serie A. Paul Gascoigne was selected for Lazio's match away to Fiorentina, but it was the home side who took the early initiative. Here's Kadobi neatly setting up Batistuta. Orsi did well to clear the header. Di Mauro, Baiano and Orlando then combined for this effort, but Orsi was there again to deny Fiorentina. Lazio's defenders have often been criticised this season, though their fighting quality can't be questioned here. Fiorentina old boy Diego Fuser carried Lazio's fight to the other end, but he was denied by Mannini after a fine run. Batistuta then squandered a golden opportunity for Fiorentina before Orsi saved instinctively from Baiano's diving header. So, goalless at half-time. Gascoigne was still on after the break, and his perfectly weighted pass almost produced the opening goal. Mannini denying Vinta. But on the hour mark, the goalkeeper could do nothing to halt Giuseppe Signori's 18th strike of the season. Gregucci and Vinta initiated the move, which Signori finished, albeit via a deflection off Facenda. Fiorentina's hopes of a goal were dashed constantly by Lazio's goalkeeper Orsi. At the other end, Fuser was determined to put one over on his old club, but Mannini denied him again. Fiorentina's intricate passing game regularly opened up Lazio's defence, but the home side failed to get past that man Orsi. While Gascoigne shared a joke with the referee, Batistuta's teammate shared his disappointment as the goalkeeper kept out the free kick. That in the final minute. But Lazio still made sure of the 2 points 2 minutes into injury time. Gascoigne squared the ball to Fuzet, who made it third time lucky. Fiorentina's defence was split wide open by Gascoigne's pass for Fuzet to convert his 7th goal of the season. 2-0 then to Lazio. They stay on course for UEFA Cup place next season. Pescara travelled to Milan in the meeting between Serie A's top and bottom clubs. And Pescara were immediately put under pressure. First Donadoni, and then Jean-Pierre Papin came close to opening the scoring. Pescara were beaten 6-1 the last time they visited Milan. The champions' whirlwind start to the game may have brought back painful memories. Hullet was rested for the game. Still, his replacement, Dejan Savicevic, was on hand to give Milan the lead 13 minutes in. Pescara's attempt to play the offside trap was pitiful as both Mendy and Righetti failed to push up. 4 minutes later, Milan made it 2-0. Rijkaard released Papin to convert his 7th goal of the season. There was just a hint of offside on this occasion, but Papin's finish was still of the highest order. Fabio Capello was praising his goalkeeper during the week. Rossi repaid his coach's trust with that save. Jean-Pierre Papin is gradually repaying his transfer fee, and 10 minutes before half-time he popped up to score his 2nd of the match. That's Milan's 3rd. Papin has now scored 8 goals in just 12 league games. Massara squandered Pescara's best chance of the match in the second half after the good work here by Allegri. Donadoni then crossed for Savicevic, whose effort was wide of the goal. The former Yugoslav international was a constant thorn in the side of Pescara. Remember this chap? Italian international Fernando Di Napoli was making his league debut for Milan after his summer transfer from Napoli. Milan's onslaught was relentless. Here's Simone going close. Milan completed the scoring on full time. Roberto Donadoni nutmegging the goalkeeper to make it 4-0. Donadoni scores his first goal since January '91, and how he made it look simple. Milan are unbeaten at the San Siro now in 23 months. It took Napoli 20 minutes to take the lead against Foggia in the San Paolo Stadium. Fonseca taking on the Foggia defence, Zola taking his 7th goal of the season. It's hard to tell which is the more impressive, Fonseca's gliding run or his slide rule pass. If you thought that was awesome, you ain't seen nothing yet. Turns banana pass puts the skids under Foggia. This time it's Zola the provider and Careca the scorer. It's an object lesson in how to beat an offside trap. Then again, how many players can spin a ball with the accuracy of a West Indies bowler. And talking of accuracy, how about the finish from Careca? This one, though, was ruled out for offside against Zola, number 10, at the bottom of your picture. Second half now, and Foggia decided to make a fist of a very one-sided game. Brian Roy's shot is stopped by Galli. Galli was enjoying his afternoon, not so the Foggia attack. Foggia had never won in Naples, and with defending like this, a point always looked beyond them. Fonseca goes close to the 3rd goal of the match. They say a week's a long time in politics. The same could be said of football. 7 days ago, Foggia held Milan to a draw. A defeat against Napoli leaves them still looking for their first away win of the season.
More goals later, but now it's competition time here on Gazzetta Football Italia, and your chance to win a dream trip to the Italian Cup final, and an Italian-style soccer watch and some old-style Italian football shirts. Just answer a simple question by ringing us on 0891 333 444. Our live game tomorrow comes from the Comunale Stadium in Bergamo, our first visit of the season to see the surprise UEFA Cup place challengers Atalanta. Currently joint 3rd alongside Lazio, they face their biggest test so far when they meet runaway leaders Milan. Atalanta have had some notable scalps this season, including Juventus last weekend, 2-1, the final score. Their winner came from this man, his 9th of the season, to put him up among the league's leading scorers. So, who is he? Is he A, Daniel Fonseca, B, Roberto Mancini, or C, Maurizio Gans? And remember, we always give the answer somewhere in the programme. The first correct caller picked out by our computer when lines close next Thursday goes into a winner's draw for a dream trip for two to the Italian Cup final in June. They'll also take one of these specially designed soccer watches with the Italian club face of their choice. Five runners-up win one of these terrific old-style Italian football shirts and copies of our own Football Italia magazine. In Gazzetta last week, we asked you to match Paul Gascoigne's choice of just the best goal from the sixth show. He selected goal number 4, Gabriel Battistuta for Fiorentina at Genoa. Our lucky winner was Mr. John O'Driscoll from Hereford. Finally, remember that you can get full details of all our competitions by turning to page 365 of Fortel, Channel 4's teletext service. Well, we're a little closer to knowing who that Italian Cup final could be between after this week's quarter-final second leg ties. First team to claim their place was Roma. In what is known as the Derby of the South, they took only 10 minutes to break the deadlock. Carnevale headed them in front against his former Napoli teammates. It was all too much for Bianchi. He was dismissed from the touchline after protesting too long and too hard over a later incident. Mihailovic, the former Red Star midfielder, added to the ill feeling. He was sent off just before half-time for this petulant slap. Napoli's Ferrara also got his marching orders in the mayhem that followed. The controversy continued in the second half. The Napoli keeper, Galli, was adjudged to have brought down Roma's Argentinian striker, Caniggia, although the visitors claim he took a dive. Even the penalty wasn't clear-cut, with Thomas Hessler slippery as he shot home. Even then, the arguments continued, and Carnevale became the fourth man sent off when he collected his second booking for this over-the-top tackle. But Roma held on to go through 2-0 on the night and 2-0 on aggregate. Parma against Juventus was a repeat of last year's final. And when Melli was fouled in the box by Di Marchi for Thomas Brolin to score, the result looked like going the same way. That made it 2-2 on aggregate after just half an hour, with Parma's first leg away goal looking decisive. But Andy Mola crashed home this 30-yarder, which Taffarel pushed onto the bar before it bounced over the line. Parma protested it hadn't crossed the line, but the replay shows their claims were unjustified. It finished 1-1 on the night, Juventus through, 3-2 on aggregate. There was more than an element of farce in the other two games, both badly affected by fog. But it wasn't enough to halt Milan's dream of an historic treble, Cup, League and European Cup. It took them only 37 misshrouded minutes to destroy arch-rivals Inter, and it was Jean-Pierre Papin who did the damage. His first was a deadly finish. His second superb, a magnificent back heel, again from a Lentini cross. What a shame that few in the San Siro got a clear view of his brilliance. Ruud Gullit did get a clear sight of Inter's goal, though, just before half-time, to wrap up a comfortable 3-0 victory. So Milan Milan through on aggregate, and the dream is still alive. But Gazza's Cup hopes are over, crushed at Torino. Fog delayed the start for 20 minutes, but there are doubts whether it should have been played at all. The first goal was a comedy of errors, with Musadi heading into his own net 3 minutes into injury time in the first half. Musadi's mistake added insult to injury. Lazio had already lost Bacci, sent off after half an hour for an assault on Carlos Aguilera. The 10 men should have levelled things when Signori was brought down. But the little striker's penalty was saved by Marchigiani. Within 7 minutes, Torino had increased their lead. Again, fate played a part. Sordo's cross being deflected into the path of Casagrande. Yet another rebound allowed Sordo to go through, and he gratefully accepted goal number 3. It was only then that Lazio came to life, scoring 2 late goals. Signori made up for his penalty miss, using the fog cover to full advantage to score his 24th goal of the season. And then few, including the cameraman, were able to make out Aaron Vinter's effort. But too little, too late. And Torino threw 3-2 on the bank, 5-4 on aggregate. That earns Torino a semi-final tie with Juventus, while Roma had the dubious honour of facing Milan. The 2 legs are played on March the 10th and March the 31st. It's back to league action after the break, with the rest of last Sunday's Serie A goals, plus an exclusive report on Atalanta and our St. Valentine's Day special. Welcome back. Our report on those Atalanta upstarts coming up. But first, Gary Bloom with the rest of the Serie A action.
Roma in red dropped Claudio Caniggia for this game against Genoa. His replacement Muzzi almost found Benedetti here. The Genoa goalkeeper Spagnuolo could have done with a few extra inches here, or a more cautious approach to Aldeir's cross. Carnevali makes it 1-0. Spagnuolo is currently keeping Tacconi on the Genoa bench. Tacconi must have been chuckling to himself. It's 3 months since Roma managed 2 goals in front of their supporters. This muscular header by Benedetti was close to increasing their lead. Headed goals seem definitely in vogue at Roma. Carnevali might have had a shot here instead. Roma's goal was rarely under threat. Fortunato stretched Cervoni's giant frame here. Roma's head tennis headed them straight to Genoa's goal. Hessler might have done better to screw this one back across the face of the goal. Then a Hessler free kick landed the wrong side of the upright. It took Roma till the hour mark to rediscover their cutting edge. Mussi's brilliantly weighted pass is deserving of the finish of Thomas Hessler. I make it 4 Genoa defenders guilty of ball watching here. Mind you, there's plenty to admire. Dutchman Johnny van Schip needed a more positive finish. Van Schip's last goal was on the opening day of the season. He had enough opportunities to alter that statistic. Van Schip wasn't only upsetting his teammates, he appears to have learnt to swear in Italian too. Roma's outstanding contributor Muzzi set up number 3 for Roma 12 minutes from the end, and another tap-in for Carnevali. When the move begins, Muzzi and Carnevali are virtually shoulder to shoulder. A 30-yard run by Carnevali and some more charitable defending is the key to the goal. A convincing win then for Roma, who move into the top half of the table for the first time since October. Paolo Montevani, the president of Sampdoria, was back in the stands following a stay in hospital game, so Nucciari was playing only his 13th Serie A game in 8 seasons. If Sampdoria can let them in, boy can they score them too. Four-man move of the highest. You won't find that clever flick on by Mancini in any training manual. Mancini's cross almost led to Sampdoria's second goal. Jugovic almost makes it 2-1. Agostini was strangely neglected here as he tried to head Ancona back into the lead. Mancini's form for Sampdoria has been exemplary. If only he could reproduce it. Ancona's goalkeeper Nista is almost caught out by Mancini's trickery. Inevitably, Mancini unlocked Ancona again here. Jugovic should have forced a goal. Glonek then forced Lombardo away from goal. No penalty. Mancini and Jugovic were proving to be the scourge of the Ancona defence. For all Sampdoria's free-flowing football, their second goal was a scrappy affair. Carini. Mancini starts a move, but his positioning makes it very difficult for him to squeeze a header in from the acute angle. Sampdoria then came from behind to win in a canter, but needed 2 goals in the last 10 minutes to do so. Next, Torino in red against Brescia. 10 minutes in, and GBH on Aguilera gives Torino a penalty. On the replay, notice Casagrande in an offside position as Muzzi knocks the ball in. Enzo Schifo scores from the penalty. It's his first goal since October, and that was a penalty too. Both sides began the campaign brightly, but have fallen away. Here's Poggi's shot for Torino off target. Brescia were generous to a fault here, but still Poggi and Aguilera couldn't find the target. This was one of the few times Brescia managed to get forward. Matut was increasing the pressure on Torino's goal, and Brescia must have known they were never going to score when Rossi and Giunta were handed a large slice of bad luck. They say luck is the greatest ace in football. It wasn't dealt to Brescia in this match. No penalty. Poggi's attempts to shoot accurately at goal were becoming increasingly futile. Eventually, Torino's pressure proved too much. Venturin is fouled by Bonometti, close to full time. And Enzo Schifo could have secured the game. I say could, because that happened. I doubt whether Landucci has ever had an easier penalty to save. Just one penalty from Schifo proved enough to settle it. It's the first time Torino have won 2 consecutive games this season. Finally, Udinese in the striped shirts against Parma. Parma are nobody's fools these days. Recito almost embarrasses them though. When Brolin can't reach this cross, Ossio can, but couldn't score. Aspria's pace has surprised several Serie A defenders. Aspria, though, is checked in his shooting stride. Trust Balbo, though, to shoot accurately on target. Ballotta finds the shot ungraspable. Balbo, who this week became an Italian citizen, rattled Parma's weak defence and the post. Parma, so disappointing on their travels, almost took the lead through Brolin. This, though, was the only goal of the match, an hour in, and hardly surprising to find Balbo the marksman. Goal number 16 of the season for Balbo, only 2 goals short of Beppe Signori, who is Italy's top goal scorer. Chances like these don't come along too often. The quality of the finish by Hervatin underlines Parma's problems away from home. This another example of Parma's wasteful finishing. The team have only scored 7 times away from home this season. Not that Udinese fared much better. Here's Branca going close. Maybe Parma were a bit unlucky. Ossio's header is headed onto the post by Pizzi. Then Matricano's overweighted challenge on Delano meant he'd kicked his last Udinese attacker of the afternoon. Parma lose again away from home. It's defeat number 7 out of 9 on their travels.
So Milan's lead now stretches to 9 points. Inter and Lazio keep their places, but Atalanta move into 4th spot. Defeats for Genoa and Brescia put them into the bottom 4, while Napoli leapfrog Foggia after victory against their relegation rivals. Beppe Signori added another to his Serie A total last weekend, and so did Abel Balbo. They're now moving away from the pack, which includes Atalanta's Maurizio Ganz. Ganz gets the chance to show his scoring ability at the very top level when he faces Milan tomorrow. That key game is our live match, and James Richardson has been to Bergamo to find out about the Serie A surprises.
That down there is the Stadio Comunale in Bergamo. Doesn't look too frightening, does it? Particularly with all this fog around. It is, however, the most dangerous stadium in Italy this season for visiting teams. The home side, Atalanta, have a home record even better than that of AC Milan, the best in Serie A, in fact. They're currently riding high on the back of a historic win against Juventus that the town of Bergamo has waited 30 years for. But tomorrow they have a match that could prove even more historic, because tomorrow an Atalanta side unbeatable at home take on a Milan side that haven't lost for 54 games. Bergamo is a wealthy northern Italian city, most famous for being split into an upper and a lower half. The population of about 120,000 people doesn't exactly seem on tenterhooks for the big game tomorrow either. In contrast to the 8 days a week passion that engulfs other Italian towns, here football is more of a weekend affair. The rest of the time the Bergamaschi do a fine job of keeping their wild enthusiasm in check.
È indifferente, diciamo, non interessandoci. Una vittoria, vabbè, ma al massimo può far piacere nel momento in cui lo vedi alla televisione, vedi l'Atalanta che è terza in classifica, però poi per il resto nessun festeggiamento particolare.
A Bergamo lunedì si incomincia a lavorare e si lavora fino al venerdì sera o anche al sabato a mezzogiorno e qualche volta la domenica mattina. Quindi il momento dello stadio è un momento importante. Questo non vuol dire che la gente bergamasca non segue il calcio, anzi lo segue molto da vicino ed è innamorata della propria squadra.
Bergamo is only a short distance northeast of Milan, a placing which, funnily enough, collects 3 of Italy's current top 3 teams within a 50-mile radius. Of course, the nearby presence of Milan and Inter makes it additionally difficult for Atalanta, as a somewhat more provincial side, to excite the fans' interest. It was so hard to raise enthusiasm for the squad here before the season began that the club's president, Percassi, was moved to make a unique offer. If the squad doesn't make 35 points this season, he'll return 15% of all season ticket monies. Risky stuff when you consider that last year Atalanta only made 33. So far, though, with Atalanta exceeding all pre-season expectations, the deal is paying off, with the Stadio Comunale filled to capacity for Sunday's game against Juventus. Well, a short if foggy drive outside of Bergamo is this place, Atalanta's training ground at Zingonia. And here I feel I really ought to address the obvious question, which is, if they train at Zingonia and play in Bergamo, why on earth are the team called Atalanta? Well, around these parts they're a pretty sophisticated bunch, and when in 1907 they decided to set up a football club, they rejected all the obvious names like Bergamo Wanderers and Bergamo FC and even Queen's Park Bergamo, deciding instead to name the team after a Greek goddess who was left for dead at birth, suckled by she-bears, and who then grew up to become the fastest woman in the world. Her name, of course, was Atalanta, and the players who wear her face on their shirts are through those gates. And inside the Centro Sportivo Bortolatti, as the squad enjoys a relaxed build-up to the big Milan game, they're still savouring the glow of their triumph over Juventus. Coach Marcello Lippi explains why.
Erano 30 anni che l'Atalanta non batteva la Juventus, e poi perché è stata una partita molto ben giocata, i ragazzi hanno fatto veramente un'ottima partita, al di là del prestigio del risultato, è stata veramente la prestazione che ha soddisfatto la città.
Well, looking at Signor Lippi, you may, like me, be thinking his face very familiar. Fighting back the urge then to address him as Butch, I put it to the coach that he bears an uncommon resemblance to Paul Newman.
È un qualche cosa che è nato, che evoca così la città, meglio assomigliare a Paul Newman che a Totò.
He means not Toto Schillaci, of course, but this man, Totò Di Cortis, one of Italy's best-loved comedians. 44 years old, Lippi's not yet a superstar in his own right. He came to Bergamo this season with only a spell at Cesena as Serie A experience. Already, though, he's taken Atalanta to their highest ever position in an 18-team Serie A. Gone are the defensive blunders of last season, and a good deal of the credit for that lies in the addition of Riccardo Alemão to the squad just 5 days before the season began.
È un grandissimo, ha fatto tantissimi mondiali, nazionale brasiliano, quindi ha dovuto un attimino riprendere la forma perché è stato per 2 mesi senza toccare la palla, solamente corso in Brasile, ha fatto preparazione. Poi nel momento di piena forma ha avuto purtroppo questo grandissimo infortunio ed è uscito fuori benissimo. Domenica è stato per noi importantissimo, ha giocato una grandissima partita, probabilmente lui così, è il perno della squadra e quando manca si sente.
Alemão è il leader, è diventato il leader di questa squadra, lo è diventato subito dopo appena arrivato, è un giocatore importantissimo sia dal punto di vista tecnico che dal punto di vista dello spogliatoio.
Alemão's transfer to Atalanta excited comment from all over Italy, and not for just the obvious reasons. The Brazilian player has a bit of a history with the Bergamo fans, it seems, a history that dates back to his Napoli days, and history that involves one of these. Back on April the 8th, 1990, Alemão and his Napoli teammates were playing out a dismal 0-0 draw at Bergamo when a 100 lira coin thrown by somebody in the crowd seemed to strike Alemão on the head. After the incident, the game was awarded 2-0 to Napoli and helped them win that year's championship, and controversy has reigned ever since about whether Alemão feigned the injury. If Alemão had any doubts last September about his reception in his new home, he needn't have worried. 8,000 Atalanta fans turned out at the airport to applaud his arrival. And injuries apart, he's more than happy with the move he's made.
È più facile giocare qui in questa squadra perché prima di tutto che è una squadra con una grinta naturale, già come gioco, come corsa.
Alemão's been joined in the Atalanta defence by 20-year-old Uruguayan Paulo Montero. One of the revelations of this season, the sweeper has scored twice for Atalanta, and Alemão predicts a great future for him.
Per me sarà il libero più forte del mondo tra poco tempo.
This season's additions to the team were largely financed by the sale of Claudio Paul Caniggia to Rome for $6.5 million, and it's a deal the club have done well for. His replacement is Maurizio Ganz, top scorer in Serie B last season, and while Caniggia's form has continued to decline down at Rome, Ganz has already scored more for Atalanta than the Argentine did all last season, including the winning goal against Juventus on Sunday.
Un gol molto importante, poi fare il gol alla Juventus è sempre bello. Era 30 anni che l'Atalanta non vinceva contro questa grande squadra che hanno ottenuto grossi risultati. Per me è una cosa molto particolare perché fin da piccolo ho tifato Juventus, quindi fare gol alla Juve e vincere è il massimo.
Ma è un uomo difficilissimo da marcare perché fa tantissimo movimento, è molto rapido, ha un buonissimo tiro, direi che fa del movimento la sua arma migliore e poi anche tecnicamente sicuramente è un elemento molto valido.
As yet, Ganz hasn't found a way into the Italian national team, but here at Bergamo they reckon it's only a matter of time for him and players like Ferron and Porrini. In fact, the national coach, Arrigo Sacchi, was a surprise guest at training this week, and as something of an expert on Italian football, he gave us his opinion on tomorrow's Atalanta-Milan game.
Beh, sarà io credo una bella partita fra due squadre in forma, una grandissima squadra come il Milan composta da tantissimi grandi giocatori con un ottimo gioco e una squadra di provincia che però sta giocando un buon calcio con grande entusiasmo, grande determinazione e anche capacità, e quindi credo che il pubblico si divertirà, è quello che mi auguro.
E speriamo di offrire un buon spettacolo, anche perché direi che giocare contro il Milan è sempre una grande emozione, poi in questo periodo tutti gli occhi sono puntati su questa squadra, difficilmente loro sottovalutano l'avversario, speriamo che possa accadere domenica.
Col Milan magari si può giocare 1000 volte e perdere 999 e vincere una, non è detto che non possa essere quella di domenica.
We've all been waiting an awful long time to see Milan get beaten, and here in Italy there are plenty of people ready to suggest that after a tough Coppa Italia game with Inter, the hostile ground of Atalanta's Stadio Comunale might just be too much for Milan. On the other hand, there are those who say that however good Atalanta are at home, Milan's away results this season have been quite simply record-breaking. Wherever the truth lies, we'll discover tomorrow afternoon, live on Channel 4, Atalanta-Milan.
So Atalanta versus Milan, our live game tomorrow at the slightly later kick-off time of 2 o'clock. Our programme gets underway at 1:45. Will it be another St. Valentine's Day massacre, or will it all be sweetness and light? Join us and find out then.
vero che ha scritturato la diva per una grande coproduzione, diciamo così, storica, che sarà girata a colori in tecnirama in New
Ma che? Quella svedese? Mamma mia, fate vedere che se no stanotte ammazzo di voi! Evviva la Svezia!
Lei viene offerta in questo momento alla splendida attrice svedese. Scoprendo una magnifica dentatura, la bellissima Silvia dà un morso al tipico e gustoso prodotto italiano, è vero?
Signor, ma nella vita che vi piace di più?
What's the thing you like most in life?
Yes, moment, Michelin.
I like lots of things, but there are 3 things I like most. Love, love and love.
Ci sono parecchie cose che mi piacciono, ma specialmente 3. Amore, amore, amore.
Noi che perdimmo pace o suon, non ci dicimmo mai perché. Vocca cavase non ne vonne, non so sti vocca in e. Pure te chiama e non risponde, per fa dispietta a me. Parola mare, si ho bene può campare, uno respira e si smania pure tu, per chi sta amore, venimmoci così, anima e cuore.